Hey, brothers and sisters, thanks for joining me again. Looks like Trump is at it again. He's stirring the pot. So he sent out this tweet. I guess it's not a tweet, a post on Truth Social, I think, last night, where he said he was ordering the U.S. Commerce Department, I think, to hold a new census and this time exclude all undocumented immigrants. So I'm not sure 100% how I feel about that just yet. So let's explore it. It just happened last night, so it's breaking news. I tried to be fair, and I just pulled up one of the first stories I could find. So ABC News, they don't like Trump, so I think that's fair. If you hadn't noticed, I try to pick like British newspapers, or I try to stay away from Fox. Because I know people are going to go, oh, that's just Fox, or oh, that's just Breitbart. Oh, yeah, and I see in the picture we got Abbott, and they're talking about what the governor's doing with the people who left the state. I did a video on that or two earlier, so I'm not going to talk much about that probably here. But my opinion is all states gerrymander. What's the problem? They should just come back and do their jobs. And other states are now threatening to gerrymander more Democrat states. I say have at it. If that's what you feel like you want to do, if it's legal, as long as it's legal, and as long as the people in your state are okay with it, so they keep electing you, if you want to gerrymander, knock yourself out. Personally, I think we should only do gerrymandering at census time. So maybe, the next session in the states after a new census result comes out, we should go ahead and do the redistricting only then, but that's not what the law says. And every state's a little different, but gerrymandering is legal in all states. And if you didn't know, in America, gerrymandering is the practice of the political party in power drawing political districts in order to maximize their vote counts in the next election. And it seems kind of sleazy to me, but that's the way the game's run. And I honestly think neither side truly wants to fix it because both sides want to do it when they're in power. And they all do. You look at any Democratic state, they're gerrymandered. You look at any Republican state, they're gerrymandered. It's just how it is. So to me, the actual gerrymandering is a non-issue. And I do think the Democrats, we hired them to do a job. And I would be fired for job abandonment if I left the state and decided not to come to work. So I fully support anything Abbott does to get these guys back to work. And Texas Supreme Court has already said that the House has the authority to compel the legislators to come back and make them work. This happened like 2-3 years ago. Last time they left, the Supreme Court made that ruling. But anyway, let's get to the census. Let's see what we think. So in the U.S., the census happens every 10 years, and it's mandated in the Constitution. So that's interesting. It's in the strongest law in the land, the framework of all other law. So this one is kind of interesting because of that, and it does have an impact on that whole redistricting thing we were talking about. So every 10 years, the last one was in 2020, so the next census mandated in the Constitution will be 2030, and we'll see how it goes. So let's go through this. So ABC News, and I'll put a link to this in the notes, so if you guys want to go back and read this or other articles, honestly, this article will be very stale very quick because this just happened yesterday, and I expect there to be a lot of activities on this. All right, so Trump orders new census excluding undocumented immigrants amid redistricting battles. All right, so President Donald Trump on Thursday demanded work begin on a new census as redistricting battles are spreading across the country. Yeah, as I said, Texas probably started it. Well, Trump might have started it because he asked Texas to go ahead and redistrict, to be fair. And then Texas did, and I think there's a couple other red states thinking about it. But now blue states are all talking about redistricting. And I say, go ahead. Everyone's already gerrymandered, so I doubt it'll have much additional impact, but go ahead if you guys feel like that's what you need to do and your people are okay with it. In a social media post, Trump announced he directed the Commerce Department to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census, Trump added. So Trump says we shouldn't be counting the illegals, but we have been in the past. For me, it's a little bit strange that representation in Congress is based on total population and not citizens. But I actually do see some reasons for it, but I just still think it's a little odd. The main reason is any kind of federal funds. So the U.S. Census Bureau says it collects data from all foreign-born who participate in its census and surveys, regardless of legal status, and has done so for 235-year history. The data determines how the 435 seats are divided among the 50 states every 10 years. Yeah, now there have been some small changes here and there, or maybe some big changes, depending on how you look at it, in how the census has been done over the years. The biggest, of course, was related to the 14th Amendment and slavery, and I think we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the Constitution and read it. But then it's also, I think, had a few other changes on how the count has been done over the years. So, but yes, it has always counted all people in the U.S. But now Trump doesn't want to count the illegals. Trump's announcement on Thursday comes amid a showdown in Texas, proposed congressional map that, if enacted, could net Republicans between 3 and 5 House seats in next year's midterm elections. Yeah, and so that's ongoing right now. The census doesn't really impact that. The census just sets the total number. Texas Democrats fled the state in protest, denying Republicans the necessary quorum to vote on changes. Republican Governor Greg Abbott is now exploring legal consequences for those lawmakers, ordering Texas Department of Public Safety to find and arrest lawmakers who left the state, asking the Texas Supreme Court to remove a top House Democrat from office. Greg Abbott is playing hardball here. He's trying to remove the speaker of the minority leader, or whatever you call him, in the House. He's one of the ones who fled, I think, to Illinois, and other legal ramifications. Like I think I saw they're fining them all $500 a day. I don't know if they'll collect it, but that's there. He's ordered the Texas Rangers to go arrest them. And they have had issues warranted by the legislature, and again, the Texas Supreme Court has 2-3 years ago said the House can compel attendance. So I think that everything he's doing is actually legal. Detractors are going to say it's not, but so far I haven't seen him do anything that's not legal. And he's asked I think he's asked the Texas Supreme Court to vacate some of those positions because they've left the state. And I don't know if that'll work or not. I don't know how they'll go. I'm all for it, and then he would have to call a special election. I think I don't know exactly how that works, so I don't know if he has any direct appointment power. I don't think he does. I think he has to do the special election, and he can call it really quick. He could do a special election in a week probably if he wanted to, and force it. And Republicans would come out to vote if the Democrats decided to boycott it. And then he could just call another special session and basically, force those legislators to show up for the quorum, and not flee the state again. I think the government could do that. The governor couldn't legally probably do it all on his own, but he could if the Speaker of the House requested it. And I also saw John Cornyn asked the FBI Director Kash Patel for FBI assistance with the Texas Rangers bringing these folks back. And I've seen the FBI has said they will help. Now, I don't know what that means. I doubt the FBI will go and arrest them in Illinois or wherever it is that they're at. But they may give them, intelligence and basically help them find them or something. So they may do that because Trump's already said he's all for bringing them back. So of course the FBI is going to help in whatever way is legal. They'll be careful. They'll try to make sure everything is legal. So far they have. With the control of the U.S. House potentially at stake, blue state Democrats are vowing to respond in kind should Texas Republicans succeed in changing the map. New York Governor Kathy Hochul and California Governor Gavin Newsom said they will explore ways to gerrymander their maps. Both states currently use independent commissions to draw their maps following constitutional amendments. So it looks like, to be fair, most states out there are already gerrymandered as much as they can be, I think. And so I think it's kind of a hollow threat from Hochul and Newsom. Again, they would have to find a way legally to set aside these independent commissions that they have in order to do this. And I expect that their maps are already gerrymandered anyway, even with the independent commission. So I doubt there's much gain to be had there. And again, what they're fighting for, in case people didn't know, is the Republicans have a very thin majority of votes in the House of Representatives. And normally, no matter how a president does, he loses a few votes in the midterms, a few, so we would expect Republicans to have a few less votes after the midterm. Almost always happens. And so that's dangerous. It makes it harder for Trump to get his agenda done. So he's calling on them to do what they can, Texas and other red states, if they can do this redistricting and gain a couple more votes, that may offset some of the losses he's expecting to have. And so Democrats are talking about doing the same thing. But again, I think the Democrats aren't going to come up with too many votes just because of the constraints that are on them and the gerrymandering that's already there. But I could be wrong. We'll see. But I actually don't care. Again, like I said, gerrymandering is legal. So if you can do it and your people will allow it, go do it. Though I wish we would pass laws that you could only like redistrict every 10 years or something like that. But one interesting thing I saw the Texas governor said in a rebuttal to all this is, the Democrats are saying this is all kind of corrupt and illegal, and you can't do it in an off year. You shouldn't be able to do it just before an election. But he's saying, hey, I need to do it because demographics have changed a lot. And in Texas, these districts are actually going to be predominantly Hispanic and are going to expected to vote for Trump because a lot of Hispanics voted for Trump. And so I thought that was an interesting take. And, I hate the hypocrisy by the folk on the left because New York just redistricted and gerrymandered just like 3 years ago to get back some seats in the last election, and Illinois did the same thing like 2 years ago. So the hypocrisy is strong with these folks. They all gerrymander like crazy, but then they're saying when Texas does it, it's bad. The whole thing is kind of crazy. Oh, I'm seeing the Army sergeant in custody after mass shooting in Stewart in Georgia. So, God bless our troops. I just see that pop up. It caught my interest in the bottom window. God bless our troops, and I hope everyone pulls through. If you hadn't seen that story, go out and look at it. It's a shame. A soldier took a personal weapon on base and shot 5 other soldiers. And so it'll be interesting to see what the details come out in his court-martial about why he did it. But he's a criminal, and I'm expecting he's going to get life in prison or a very long time, if not life, in Leavenworth. I think that's the military prison because he was an active duty soldier and he shot soldiers on a military installation. So I think that's 100% a court-martial situation. And but again, I hope his victims pull through. But I would like to hear why he did it. I'd like to hear the details come out, and then hopefully the military will, change processes and procedures to make things like this more difficult in the future. But again, my heart goes out to those families. I used to be an Air Force brat myself, so I used to live on those bases. This was in Fort Stewart, Georgia. I actually didn't live in Fort Stewart, but I lived on other bases. Now, Trump in his first term attempted to change the census to exclude non-citizens. In 2019, the Supreme Court ruled that the Commerce Department's attempt to add citizenship question violated federal law. All right. So, So with that, let's look at what the Constitution actually says about it, and then we'll talk about it. So there's really 2 relevant things about this before the activists go hyperbolic. Let's actually see what the Constitution says. And so really the main thing is Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution says representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within the Union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service, so I guess indentured servants, for a term of 3 years, and excluding Indians not paying, not taxed, and 3/5 of all other persons. Okay, so that's the original Constitution, and the census numbers are used for that, and it calls for a census to be held. I believe that that is the important clause here. Now we have a little problem, more than a little problem. 3/5 of all other persons. This was slaves. Okay, so this is the original Constitution written back in around 1780-ish. We fixed that problem. That's a huge problem. After the Civil War, all of the slaves were freed, and to fix that problem, they came up with the 14th Amendment. So here's the 14th Amendment, Section 2. What we just read is now amended. This supersedes the entire Section 2. So it's basically a whole new Section 2. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. The census must include everyone. I think that's the Supreme Court's reasoning. And so you're going to hear about a bunch of hyperbolic stuff, I think, from activists saying, oh my God, Trump's trying to do this and Trump's trying to do that. But the Constitution is pretty clear, whole number of persons excluding Indians not taxed. So I would say Trump could be lining up a legal fight with this, okay? But I think the only lever he's got to pull on is the excluding Indians not taxed. Okay. So if I was on the Supreme Court, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not, the way I might read that is, okay, Indians back in the day, we had treaties with Indians. They were sort of like treated as like different states almost on their reservations, and we didn't tax them. And some of that stuff still works today. Like on Indian land, state law doesn't really apply. So Trump could try to say that like the non-documented folks aren't taxed, and if they're not legally taxed, then we don't have to count them. But I think that'd be an uphill battle and a really hard fight in the Supreme Court. But maybe that's what he's going for. But I don't think that's what he's going for. Here's what I think he's actually doing. I think he's just kind of winding up the activists, number one. He's doing this to score points with his base. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's actually a bad idea. So he's calling for a new census right now. But this is a census that's outside of the Constitution. It can't be used for what the Constitution calls for is used for. So basically, he can take it and then say, hey, we need to know how many people are really in the U.S. And I don't believe the old censuses. I think that they were fixed. They were rigged. I want good statistics. I want good numbers. And you know what? I want to know how many undocumenteds are in the country. And I want to know how many foreigners are in the country. So I want that data collected so we know. And then he'll be able to use that data in the future for other purposes. So he's kind of muddied the water up by calling this a census. This is not the same thing as your standard U.S. Census, and I expect it will not be used for the same purposes as the standard U.S. Census. U.S. Census is clear. It's all persons. And like I said, I think at the beginning, I'm not sure that that's actually the best idea to do all persons because they tie it to representation. And I don't like that. If you're in the country illegally and we load up a state with lots of illegals, I don't think they should be counted for representation purposes. I don't like that at all. But I do like if they're counted for federal services, because we could have lots of legal aliens in the country that are using hospital services, or in a FEMA emergency, we need to get money to help them. And so for all that kind of stuff, yeah, I think we need accurate data so that money can be sent appropriately where the people are. People's political party should be immaterial, and people's where they're from should be immaterial for things like disaster aid. Now, I'm all for helping citizens first, so I shouldn't say it's immaterial. Definitely all citizens, no matter what your party is, no matter who you like, we should be sending money to California to help with fires. We should be sending money to North Carolina to help with floods. We should be sending money to Texas to help with floods. Really, we should be colorblind with U.S. citizens. And then if we've got extra money, then we should help foreigners out. But I'm not a big fan of sending American tax dollars and spending it on illegals. You need to spend the vast majority of it on citizens. So that's my thoughts. That's how I think this is going to go down. I'm interested to see what the crazies do. I may do an update of this in a few days once the crazies come out of the network about it. But if you like and subscribe. If you don't don't watch me. It's that simple. And I'll do it again. Thanks. Bye.